friends, in this video I am going to walk you through the steps of making a coil pot. A coil pot is just a piece where you have ropes of clay that have been joined together to build up what you want. And this is just like a little cup or something. I think it would be fun for paintbrushes. But let's get started. I have a few tools that I found around the house that I thought would be helpful. We've got a Q-tip, a plastic spoon, a paintbrush, toothbrush, an empty gift card, and then a rolling pin. I've also got the little container of slip that came in your kit. I'll just open that. And what we'll do first thing is I will take off a piece of our clay because we need a base for our pot. And I'll just kind of make it into a little hamburger patty. And you can do this by hand or you can use your rolling pin. And I am just gonna roll this out. Here we go. I flipped it around so that it would be even. Then I flip it upside down. You don't want it to stick to your surface, so I hope you have at least like a little piece of paper down because that'll help it from getting too attached. All right, so now I'm just gonna smooth that out because it's a lot easier to smooth right now than it is when you get your pieces stuck to it. All right, for the first, all right, we've got our base. I think it's good, it's round. You can do this in any shape you really want to do. Remember that your little piece has to fit back in your cup. I am just rolling the edges to get it into the shape I want it. There we go. All right, now I'm gonna set this aside and I'm gonna get our big ball of clay. I'm just rolling it out a little bit so that it's a little bit easier for me to take off a chunk. While you're working on it, you can put it back in your bag or just in your little container so it doesn't dry out. And so then we're gonna take one of the pieces that we broke off and we're gonna just make it into a little worm. I guess I need to move that. And this will be much easier if your surface is not wobbly like mine, but we're making do. And so when you're making your coils, if you can see that mine are getting a little bit wacky, so I'm gonna smush them down a little bit. I feel like this is one of the first things we learned to do with Play-Doh when we were kids, so if your kids are working on this, I bet they are much better at it than me. All right. So I don't want it to get too thin. You can, but that is just a little bit more work than I think we're gonna do on this video. Let's see. All right, so now I have my first coil and it's a little extra, which is perfect. You can make your coils a little more perfect if you want to. But for this, we're just doing a little tutorial. So I've got my toothbrush, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use it to score right around the edge where I'm going to attach this first coil. Now don't worry, you don't have to do this to every single one. This is just your starting point because we're gonna be joining this clay together. And we want to make sure that it has a really good firm attachment on this first coil because everything's going to be built on that. Now I'm going to use the paintbrush that I have. If you didn't have a paintbrush, you can use your finger, you can use a Q-tip, that's fine too. So I am going to just dab this on. If you brush it, you can smooth out the little marks you made with your toothbrush. and you don't want to do that. The little spaces where the slip goes kind of seals it together. It makes it attach a little bit better. I'm going to do the same thing on my first coil. Slip is like glue for clay. It's great. Sometimes I put a little bit of vinegar in my slip and it helps it work a little bit better. So if you smell a little bit of a vinegary smell, that's where it's coming from. Alrighty, perfect. Now I'm gonna put that on there and make sure that I attach it. I'm just smushing it, but I'm being kind of careful because I don't want to press so hard that I just like completely misshape the coil. But I also want to make sure that it is joining. Nice. All right, I'm gonna wipe my fingers on that. Let's see. If you have a toothpick, now is a good time to use it. You can just cut this little piece right there. And then I get to use it as a template of where to cut the next one. And see, we've got a great little joining. Since this clay is so wet, I don't even think I'm gonna need to score and slip the joint right there. All right, and now you get to go on to, you can smooth it out right here. You can see I'm just rubbing my finger along the joint to kind of combine it. And this will be my foundation for the pinch pot. Actually, this is a coil pot. Get my lines crossed. All right, and so coil pots are neat because you can either leave the look of the coil on both sides, or you can smooth both sides out. For this one, we're just gonna smooth the inside like I did on this piece so that you can actually see your patterns. I think that's kind of fun, but you can also use this as the basis for building just a smooth-sided pot. I think for the amount of clay we're working with, a pinch pot is a little bit easier, but some people really love the process of joining coils, and it is up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and smooth this inside one while I don't have any sides because that makes it easier. Now let's get to joining this. I'm gonna roll out another coil. I'm gonna squeeze the water out of my sponge and just make sure that this is damp so it doesn't crack. The key to joining clay to clay without having to use the slip is that they're the same consistency. Kind of smushed that, but it'll be fine. All right, so we'll just push this down, wrap it around. And on this one, we will just keep moving around. So now it's time for our next coil. I'll start it out, get it kind of round. And if you want to go ahead and have a bunch of coils rolled out, you can. Just once you get them rolled, put them on a damp paper towel and maybe put like a little piece of plastic on top of them, like some saran wrap or something, just so they don't dry out while you're working with the others. But that is a good way to go ahead and move your project along and keep everything the same level of dryness while you're attaching. Mine are just turning into little rectangles. All right, perfect. I'm gonna do the same thing I did before and just very lightly dampen these. All right, boop. And so now I'm going to pinch these two pieces together, and if you really want to, you know, make sure it looks like it's one coil and you don't see that spot, you can just take a second before it's completely attached to shake that out. I think once we get going, that'll be fine. And so I'm just building this up. And now that I've got about 2 of them stacked on top of each other, I will start smoothing out the inside. You just want to make sure, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I'll pick it up. Normally I would just leave it sitting down and use my hand as a support for the back side, but I am just rubbing my thumb down and it's joining these coils of clay and smoothing them out. You can also, that's what our spoon is handy for. You can just gently take the edge of the spoon, or any other tool. You could use probably little edge of your toothbrush, whatever you can find will work nicely for that. I'm just doing a bunch of little downward strokes to kind of mush it together and make sure that it stays attached. Because if we just set the coils on top of each other, they would end up not sticking. But this joins the clay on the inside, so you still get the look of a coiled pot on the outside, but it'll also make it waterproof if you wanted to use it for, this could be like a little cat bowl. I don't have a cat, we have a dog, but I grew up having cats and I love cats. We'll see if I can talk the rest of our family into getting one during this quarantine. But you could, you know, use it for a little snack bowl. All kinds of stuff. There is no limit. But you can see that I'm just going around doing the whole thing, and now we've got a good base. One word of advice when you're making these, this part is easier as well if you have a thicker coil, because you just have more that you can scrape. You don't have to be quite so careful. All right, and so now, just so you can see, I'm picking it up so you can see it, but I would probably leave it sitting down. I'm just gonna kind of smooth it a little bit, but not so much that I lose my coils. But you can see there's just these tiny little cracks. That just happens to clay when you stretch it out and it's pulling apart, but this smooths those out and makes it fun. And so with coil pots, I think it's always neat to add in some sort of variation midway along, or you can do it the whole way. Like, there's no limits to the creativity you can use here. I added this little band of like beads to the top of this one, so I'll show you how to do that real quick. You'll just roll a ball and you place it, and you can do as many as you want. I have a friend who made one, and I will check with her and see if I can post her picture down below, but it was beautiful. She had a bunch of little balls placed in different areas. I think she said she was going to use it for a string of pearls succulent plant, so I can't wait to see how it turns out and what kind of glaze she chooses. All right, so you would just take your next coil and keep moving and press that around. You can see it just like went right around it. You can either push this down to make sure that it is flush right there, and then start smoothing from the back side. If you find that you need a little extra bit of clay to fill that space, no problem. You can just put a little piece there, and then when you start smoothing it out, you can see you won't even know that you filled it with something that wasn't there. And then you've got a little piece built into your pot. It adds a little interest. Another option that you might have learned in school or seen other people doing, if you've ever taken any kind of clay art classes, you can roll out another piece and you can make a little circle coil. And we'll just wet that because it's just cracking when it bends, but that's no big deal. And you can insert something like this and then do another long coil over it. And that can add a neat effect when you do it all the way around or, you know, in specific spots. You can also do other geometric shapes. I've seen people do triangles. You just start with the little shape that you want. And so see, I'm just forming it into a triangle. And we'll just keep doing that until you make it. Pinch that off. And then you can just kind of tap it. But this would be neat to have alternating triangles going around your cup. But there's all different kinds of shapes you can do. And then when you're done, we'll pretend that this is the top of our pot. You'll just finish smoothing the inside out. And I like to smooth it about every 2 coils. I start blending into the base. But then you just smooth your top and blend these 2 pieces together.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Well, we're back. We had a few little visitors. My kiddos knew I was in here making clay and they wanted to join. I hope you guys are as excited about it as they were. All right, so I think I was at the part where I was telling you how to smooth the top of your pot, but that's very simple. You just run your hands along your fingers along the top, and then you can just use your sponge to smooth it out. And, you know, just fiddle with it until it gets just as smooth as you like it. You can use any kind of tool to help finish that edge off. Whenever I use my sponge, I always like to squeeze out as much water as I can. You don't want it to be too dry, or too wet, sorry. All right. And if this were planned to be a very short little bowl, it'd be perfect. We'll get the inside smoothed out. That's a good thing to do before your walls get super high and your hand won't fit in there. But that is the basics of making a coil pot. Thank you for creating with me, and be sure to check out my other tutorial videos. Feel free to send me any questions and photos of you and your family making your own Ember Ceramics at-home pottery kits.